Elena Voss learned to live small. She learned to keep her voice low in public, to park her car facing the street, and to never stay in one town for more than a few years. She learned these things not because she was running from the law, but because she was running from a kingdom. 9 years ago, she had been 19 years old, working as a healer's assistant in the Blackthorn Pack territory, when she met Damien. He was not yet a king then, not fully. He was the heir, tall and quiet, with a way of listening that made her feel like the only person in the room. They fell in love the way young people do, without thinking about consequences, without knowing that his father had already promised his hand in marriage to the daughter of a rival pack, a woman named Serafina, whose family controlled trade routes the Blackthorns needed. When Elena discovered she was carrying his child, she also discovered the truth about the arranged mating. She was called into a private meeting with the pack elders, who explained, calmly and without cruelty, that her baby could never be acknowledged. A war would follow, packs would break apart, alliances built over 3 generations would collapse overnight. They offered her money. They offered her a new identity. What they did not offer her was a place for her child in the only world he was born into. Elena did not take the money. She took only her son, whom she named Cain, and she disappeared into the human world, where wolves rarely looked and rarely found what they were searching for. For 8 years, she raised him alone in a small town near the coast, in a house with a crooked fence and a kitchen that always smelled like cinnamon, because Cain loved cinnamon toast more than anything else in the world. She worked as a nurse. She paid her bills on time. She tucked her son into bed every night and told him stories about brave boys who protected the people they loved, stories that were, in a way, about his own father, though Cain never knew it. Cain was not an ordinary child. He ran faster than the other boys. He could hear his mother's footsteps from 2 streets away. His eyes, when the light hit them just right, seemed to glow gold instead of brown. Elena taught him to control it. She taught him breathing exercises. She taught him to count backward from 10 whenever he felt his temper rise, because anger, she warned him gently, could bring out the parts of him that needed to stay hidden. He listened. He was a good boy, thoughtful and quick to apologize, the kind of child who noticed when his mother was tired and brought her tea without being asked. But there were nights when Elena sat at the kitchen table, long after he had gone to sleep, staring at the wall, wondering if she had made the right choice. Wondering if hiding him from his father was protection or if it was theft. Theft of a life he might have wanted. Theft of a father he might have loved. Far away, in the heart of the Blackthorn territory, Damien had become king. His father passed the crown to him 3 years after Elena left, and Damien ruled with the same quiet intensity he had always carried, though those closest to him noticed something had changed. He smiled less. He worked more. His mating to Serafina had gone exactly as politically planned, and exactly as emotionally empty as anyone could have predicted. They shared a home and a title, but nothing else. After years of trying, no child had come, and the whispers in the pack grew louder each season. A king without an heir was a king the wolves feared could not protect them, no matter how strong his own claws were. Damien never spoke of Elena. Not to his advisors, not to Serafina, not even to himself, if he could help it. But some nights, when the territory was quiet and the moon was full, he found himself standing at the edge of the forest where they used to meet, and he wondered where she had gone, and whether she still thought of him at all. Cain's 8th birthday fell on a warm Saturday in early June. Elena planned a small party in the community park, just a few of his school friends, balloons tied to a picnic table, and a chocolate cake with blue frosting, because blue was Cain's favorite color that year. It was, by every measure, an ordinary birthday. Until it wasn't. The children were playing a game of tag near the swings, when one of the older boys, a bit too rough, shoved Cain hard enough that he fell and scraped his palm against the gravel. Cain was not seriously hurt, but the sting of it, combined with the embarrassment of falling in front of his friends, sent a flash of anger through him that he had never felt so strongly before. For 1 second, maybe 2, his eyes shifted from brown to a molten, unmistakable gold, and a low sound rose from his throat that no 8-year-old boy should have been able to make. A woman nearby, filming her own daughter blowing bubbles, happened to catch the edge of it on her phone. She did not think much of it at the time, assuming it was some trick of the light or a strange echo from another child. She posted the clip later that evening on a parenting group online, laughing about how odd kids could look on camera sometimes. It should have disappeared into the endless noise of the internet. But wolves have their own ways of watching the human world, quiet scouts placed in unlikely corners, searching for exactly this kind of anomaly. Within 3 days, the clip reached someone who recognized what it truly was. Within a week, it reached the Blackthorn court. Damien watched the video 11 times before he allowed himself to believe it. The eyes, the shape of the jaw, the way the boy's shoulders squared before the shift, exactly like his own used to as a child. He did not need a bloodline test to know. He felt it in the same place a wolf feels the pull of its own pack, deep and undeniable. He arrived at Elena's door on a Tuesday morning, dressed plainly, no guards, no announcement, just a man who looked like he had aged 10 years and 9. Elena opened the door already knowing, somehow, before she even saw his face, that her quiet life had come to its end. "You should not have come here," she said, though her voice cracked on the words. "I had to," Damien answered. "I saw him. I saw our son." Behind her, Cain appeared in the hallway, curious about the stranger's voice. He froze when he saw Damien's eyes, gold like his own, and something in him, some instinct buried deep beneath 8 years of careful training, recognized the man standing at the door before his mind could explain why. The conversation that followed was not gentle. It could not be. Damien's grief poured out first, sharp and furious, grief for 9 years he could never get back, for a childhood he had missed entirely, for birthdays and first steps, and school mornings that belonged to someone else's memory now. Elena did not flinch from his anger. She had expected it, had rehearsed her answer to it 1,000 times in her mind over the years. "I did not run from you," she told him, once his voice had quieted enough to hear her. "I ran from what they would have done to him. You know what the elders would have called him. A liability, a bargaining chip, a child born into a war he never chose. I could not give him that life, Damien. I gave him this one instead, a safe one, a happy one." Damien sat down at her kitchen table, the same table where Elena had spent so many sleepless nights, and put his head in his hands. He did not disagree with her reasoning. That was the hardest part. He knew, better than anyone, what his own court was capable of when a child became useful instead of loved. He also knew that his silence, his obedience to his father's arrangement all those years ago, had made this outcome possible in the first place. "I am not the same man who let you go," he said finally. "I am king now. I decide what happens in my own court. And I will not let my son grow up not knowing where he comes from, or let you keep living in hiding because of choices that were never yours to carry alone." Elena wanted to refuse him. Part of her, the part that had built walls around her heart for 9 years, wanted to send him away and continue the quiet life she had made. But she looked at Cain, who was watching his father with a mixture of fear and fascination, a boy who had spent his whole life sensing he was different, without ever knowing why, and she understood that the time for hiding had ended the moment that video was filmed. The choice was no longer whether to reveal the truth. It was only how. The following weeks moved quickly. Damien returned to his territory first, alone, to prepare the court for what was coming. He met privately with his most trusted advisors, and told them the truth before the rumors could distort it. He informed Serafina as well, with more honesty and respect than their marriage had ever contained, and together they agreed to dissolve their mating, a decision that surprised no one, least of all Serafina herself, who admitted she had long stopped believing their bond would ever produce warmth, let alone an heir. The elders, predictably, resisted. Some spoke of scandal. Others worried what a human-raised heir might mean for pack tradition. A few, loyal to Serafina's family, threatened to challenge Damien's authority altogether, hinting that a king who could not control his own bloodline could not be trusted to control a kingdom. Damien did not hide from the criticism. He called a full gathering of the pack, every family, every rank, standing beneath the old oak trees at the center of the territory where such gatherings had always been held. He told them the truth without excuses. He told them about Elena, about the arrangement that had cost him 9 years with his own child, and about the choice he was making now to correct it. "A king who abandons his own blood for the sake of convenience," he said, his voice carrying across the crowd, "does not deserve to lead anyone. I failed once because I let others choose for me. I will not fail again." It was not applause that answered him, not at first. It was silence, heavy and uncertain, but silence, in a pack unaccustomed to honesty from its leaders, was its own kind of respect. Slowly, over the following days, support gathered. Younger wolves, tired of rigid tradition, spoke openly in favor of Damien's decision. Older families, moved by the king's willingness to admit fault publicly, softened their opposition. Even Serafina, in a quiet act of grace, told the court that she wished Elena and Cain well, a gesture that carried more weight coming from her than from anyone else. Elena moved to the territory a month later, not as a secret and not as a scandal, but as Damien's chosen mate, standing beside him openly for the first time in 9 years. It was not an easy transition. She had to learn the rhythms of a world she had left behind, the politics, the ceremonies, the watchful eyes of a pack still deciding whether to trust her. But she also found, to her quiet relief, that she was not walking into that world alone. Damien stood beside her at every gathering. Cain, still adjusting to the strange new sounds of his father's territory, found comfort in his mother's steady presence, and, slowly, in his father's patient teaching. Damien taught Cain the things Elena never could: how to control a full shift, how to read the pack's silent language, how to carry the weight of being watched without letting it change who he was underneath. And Cain, in turn, reminded Damien of things a king could easily forget: how to laugh without reason, how to ask questions without fear, how to trust that love did not need to be earned through politics or bloodlines, only given freely. A year after that quiet Tuesday morning, when Damien first knocked on Elena's door, the Blackthorn territory gathered again beneath the old oak trees, this time for a ceremony rather than a confession. Cain stood at the center, dressed simply, his golden eyes steady despite the crowd watching him. Damien placed a hand on his son's shoulder and declared him, before the entire pack, the true and rightful heir to the Blackthorn throne. Elena stood beside them both, no longer hiding, no longer running, no longer carrying a secret alone in a quiet house by the coast. She watched her son, the boy she had raised in secrecy and love in equal measure, step into a destiny she had once believed would destroy him, and instead found it had only made him stronger. The kingdom that once could have torn her family apart now stood united around it, not because tradition demanded it, but because a king had chosen truth over convenience, and a mother had chosen love over fear. And on that warm afternoon beneath the old oak trees, 9 years of hiding finally became something worth celebrating.